The year was 2097, and humanity stood at the precipice of something great, or catastrophic. Earth was a scarred world, its history marred by war, climate disasters, and economic collapses. Yet, in the face of adversity, humanity had done what it always did: adapt, survive, and push forward. The invention of the Alcubierre Drake drive, humanity's first faster-than-light (FTL) engine, had changed everything. Designed by an international coalition of scientists and engineers, it had turned distant stars from unreachable dreams into navigable destinations. The first test flights had been met with skepticism. Then disbelief. Then awe. With the breakthrough, Earth's divided nations found themselves in an uneasy truce. Not out of goodwill, but because they had something bigger to worry about: the universe. Who, or what, was out there? ###the Pioneer Expedition. In 2102, the first true interstellar mission, the UNV Magellan, was launched. A massive endeavor backed by Earth's united scientific minds, it carried a crew of 500 into the void beyond Sol, toward Proxima Centauri. The world held its breath as they watched the ship's FTL drive ignite. Within weeks, confirmation came: humanity had officially become an interstellar species. But what they found changed everything. ###First contact, first fear. The Magellan didn't find an empty, barren system. They found ruins. On Proxima b, beneath layers of ice and time, were the remains of a long-dead civilization, charred, crumbling, and utterly destroyed. The wreckage suggested war. But war against what? It was a chilling revelation: humanity wasn't the first to reach the stars. And it might not be alone. The discovery sent shockwaves across Earth. Political tensions, once muted by the excitement of interstellar travel, flared again. Some argued that humanity should expand, explore, and stake its claim before another species did. Others warned of caution, fearing the fate of whatever had perished on Proxima b. The only consensus? Humanity had to be ready. ###The Defense Initiative. The newly formed United Earth Government, UEG, authorized the expansion of spacefaring fleets, not just for exploration, but for defense. Mars and Luna, already home to fledgling colonies, became shipbuilding powerhouses. Weapon systems once restricted to Earth's atmosphere were re-engineered for the void. Scientists worked around the clock, reverse engineering whatever technology they could scavenge from the Proxima ruins. And then came the signal. ###The message from the void. In 2115, deep space listening stations intercepted a broadcast. It wasn't human. It wasn't random. It was a message, and worse, it wasn't meant for us. A distant voice, alien and unreadable, screamed across the cosmos. It was a distress call. And something else was coming. The message was haunting. It wasn't just a distress call, it was a warning. Buried within the alien signal were fragmented words, distorted and broken by time and space. Linguists and AI decryption systems worked day and night to piece it together. What they uncovered sent shivers down the spines of Earth's leaders. They are coming. They consume. Flee. Hide. Resist if you can. We failed. The message was over 10,000 years old. ###The debate, fight or flee? Panic rippled across Earth and its colonies. If the beings who sent this message had been wiped out, what chance did humanity have? Scientists theorized that whatever had attacked them could still be out there, watching, hunting. The ruins on Proxima b weren't an anomaly. They were a gravestone. The United Earth Government, UEG, split into factions. Some wanted to retreat, focusing on strengthening Earth's defenses and remaining hidden. Others argued that cowering would only delay the inevitable. The only way to survive was to expand, fortify, and prepare for war. The decision was made: humanity would not run. ###Project Aegis, Forging the Shield. A massive effort was launched, Project Aegis to create the most advanced fleet of warships humanity had ever built. Every colony, every orbital station, every scientist and engineer was mobilized. The first phase was construction. Mars shipyards churned out heavy cruisers, Luna became a weapons research hub, and asteroid mining operations expanded exponentially. But ships alone wouldn't be enough. Humanity needed to understand what it was up against. The Ghost Fleet's mission. In 2123, the UEG authorized the creation of the Ghost Fleet, a secret squadron of stealth ships designed for deep space reconnaissance. Their mission? To follow the signal's origin and learn the fate of those who sent it. The fleet consisted of 5 state-of-the-art vessels, each equipped with the latest cloaking technology and AI-assisted navigation. The lead ship, UNV Revenant, carried humanity's best and brightest, scientists, linguists, and special forces operatives trained for first contact, and, if necessary, first combat. They set course for the unknown, leaving behind a world that watched and waited. The derelict world. After nearly 2 years of travel, the Ghost Fleet reached its destination, a shattered world orbiting a dying star. Once, it had been a thriving metropolis. Now, it was a silent tomb. The ruins stretched for miles, vast cities reduced to skeletal remains. Monuments to an alien civilization stood frozen in time, their warnings etched in stone and metal. The team found ancient databanks, still partially operational. What they learned confirmed their worst fears. The attackers weren't just conquerors. They were exterminators. A species that didn't negotiate, didn't enslave, didn't take prisoners. They consumed. Entire worlds were stripped bare, populations eradicated. No survivors. No mercy. And then the Ghost Fleet's long-range sensors picked up something moving in the void. The hunters have returned. It started as a faint signal, then another. Then dozens. Unfamiliar ships, massive and bristling with weapons, appeared on the fleet's sensors. They weren't searching. They were patrolling. This wasn't just a dead world, it was occupied territory. The Revenant's captain made a split-second decision: retreat. But it was too late. The aliens had seen them. And they were coming. The Revenant's alarms screamed as the alien warships changed course. They were fast, far faster than anything humanity had encountered before. The Ghost Fleet had hoped to remain unnoticed, but the moment they entered the system, the predators had detected them. Now, they were prey. Full burn. Get us out of here. Captain Elias Varian's voice cut through the chaos. The Revenant's engines roared to life, and the rest of the Ghost Fleet followed, breaking formation in an attempt to evade pursuit. The enemy ships did not hesitate. They didn't send warnings, didn't attempt communication. They simply opened fire. First blood. The first ship to fall was the UNV Phantom. A high-velocity kinetic round, launched from an alien vessel the size of a battleship, slammed through its hull like paper. There was no explosion, just silence, then debris. 300 lives, gone in an instant. Evasive maneuvers. We need to reach FTL range. Varian shouted. The Revenant twisted and weaved through the chaos, deploying countermeasures, but the enemy was relentless. More ships fell. The UNV Wraith managed to take a hit and keep moving, but it was trailing atmosphere and fire. The Ghost Fleet was being torn apart. Then the Revenant's AI, Helios, spoke. Captain, I have analyzed their attack patterns. They are tracking us through an unknown scanning method. Stealth technology is ineffective. Varian's blood ran cold. Humanity's best cloaking technology meant nothing to them. A desperate gambit. They couldn't win a fight. They couldn't outrun them. But maybe they could outsmart them. Varian made a call that would either save the mission, or doom it. All remaining ships, divert to asteroid field Delta 5. We use it for cover. Drop decoy drones and scatter. The fleet obeyed. The Revenant and the surviving ships plunged into a dense belt of shattered rock, twisting through the debris at breakneck speeds. The enemy ships hesitated, only for a moment, but it was enough. Helios deployed a last-ditch gambit, several dozen drone beacons, each broadcasting a scrambled version of the Revenant signal, scattering in all directions. The hunters, momentarily confused, split their forces to chase the false signals. And that was the opening the Revenant needed. ####escape into the unknown. With one final burst of energy, the Revenant reached FTL range and jumped. For a brief, terrifying moment, Varian thought they hadn't made it. Then the ship stabilized, and the enemy ships were gone. The surviving ships of the Ghost Fleet followed soon after. They had escaped. But barely. Only 2 ships remained, the Revenant and the crippled Wraith. Less than a third of the fleet had survived. And worse, humanity had been exposed. #### The war begins. Varian and his crew returned to Earth with a single message. **, they know we exist. And they are coming. **. Panic spread. The UEG's fears had been confirmed, the warnings from the Proxima ruins had been real. Humanity was no longer a hidden newcomer in the galaxy. It was now in the sights of an enemy that did not negotiate, did not hesitate, and did not fail. Project Aegis was no longer about preparation. It was about survival. The war for humanity's place in the galaxy had begun. The return of the Revenant sent shockwaves through the United Earth government. The news was worse than anyone had feared. Humanity wasn't just in danger, it had already been marked for extinction. The enemy, now designated the Ravagers, wasn't just powerful. They were methodical. They had destroyed entire civilizations, leaving only ashes behind. And now, they knew humanity existed. There was no time to waste. #### The call to arms. For the first time in human history, there were no nations, no factions, only survival. Earth's leaders abandoned old rivalries, uniting under a single banner. Every colony, every shipyard, every scientist, engineer, and soldier was given a singular purpose: prepare for war. The first step was fleet expansion. Humanity had ships, but they were designed for exploration, not war. That had to change. Project Aegis, once a defensive initiative, was transformed overnight. It was no longer about shields. It was about weapons. #### The Titan-class warships. Mars orbital shipyards, now the largest in human history, became the birthplace of the Titan-class dreadnoughts, massive warships built to withstand anything the Ravagers could throw at them. Each Titan-class was a fortress in space, bristling with railguns, energy cannons, and missile batteries. They were designed with one purpose: to fight and win. But ships weren't enough. Humanity needed an army. #### The Genesis program. Earth's best soldiers were good, but they weren't enough. The Ravagers were stronger, faster, and technologically superior. Humanity had to close the gap. The Genesis program was launched in secret. Scientists and military leaders worked together to create a new breed of soldier, humans enhanced with cutting-edge cybernetics, neural link combat systems, and next-generation exoskeleton armor. These warriors, known as the Sentinels, were trained to fight in any environment: zero gravity, alien worlds, deep space combat. They would be the first and last line of defense. And they would be ready. #### The First Skirmish. In 2131, just 6 years after the Revenant's return, humanity's preparations were put to the test. Long-range sensors picked up an anomaly in the Kuiper Belt, a fleet of unknown vessels, inbound at high speed. The UEG wasted no time. The First Fleet, led by the newly commissioned dreadnought UNS Armageddon, was deployed to intercept. The enemy arrived in force, dozens of sleek, predatory warships, their hulls black as void. They didn't hesitate. They attacked immediately. And this time, humanity fought back. The battle was brutal. The Ravagers' weapons tore through the First Fleet's outer defenses, but the Titan-class dreadnoughts held the line. For the first time, humanity's new weapons were tested in real combat, and they worked. Railguns shattered enemy hulls, missile barrages ripped through their formations, and Sentinel strike teams boarded enemy ships, fighting hand-to-hand in the cold darkness of space. The cost was high, 3 dreadnoughts and dozens of smaller ships were lost. But the battle ended in something no species had ever accomplished before. A human victory. #### the message to the stars. The few surviving Ravager ships retreated into deep space, vanishing without a trace. But humanity knew this was only the beginning. The enemy wouldn't retreat forever. They would return, stronger, deadlier. But now, humanity was ready. In the aftermath, the UEG made a bold move. A message was broadcast across every known frequency, sent out to the stars. Asterisk, we are humanity. We will not run. We will not hide. If you come for us, we will fight. And we will win. Asterisk. For the first time in galactic history, the Ravagers had met a species that did not cower. The age of human dominance had begun. The Battle of the Kuiper Belt had changed everything. For the first time, the Ravagers had been defeated, not just resisted, but beaten. Humanity had fought back and survived. But no one believed the war was over. The Ravagers were a force that had wiped out countless civilizations across the stars. They would return, and when they did, it would be with overwhelming force. Humanity had little time to celebrate. The real war was about to begin. #### the hunt for the Ravagers. The UEG knew that staying on the defensive was a death sentence. If humanity waited for the Ravagers to come to them, it would be another Proxima B, another ruined world left in ashes. So they took the fight to the enemy. The Hellhound Initiative was launched, a campaign of deep space strikes led by humanity's fastest and deadliest warships. The goal? Hunt down Ravager forward bases, disrupt their supply lines, and gather intelligence on their true strength. For the first time, the hunters would become the hunted. #### Operation Stormbreaker. A task force of 6 Titan-class dreadnoughts, led by the UNS Warspite, plunged into Ravager-controlled space. Their mission was to locate and destroy a suspected staging ground, one of the places where the enemy built their fleets before launching invasions. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. #### The Factory Worlds. Orbiting a dying red sun, the Warspite discovered something terrifying, an entire planet repurposed into a shipyard. Ravager warships were being produced by the thousands, automated foundries working endlessly to churn out new weapons of destruction. But that wasn't the worst part. The team discovered organic remains in the wreckage, biological matter fused into Ravager machinery. The truth hit like a sledgehammer. The Ravagers didn't just destroy civilizations. They consumed them. #### The Horror Unleashed. The Warspite's fleet engaged, launching an all-out assault on the factory world. Railguns, missile salvos, and energy weapons tore through enemy defenses. But the Ravagers responded with a brutality never before seen. For the first time, they adapted. The enemy warships had learned from the Battle of the Kuiper Belt. They moved differently, countered human tactics, and used new weapons designed specifically to break through Earth's defenses. They were evolving. The Warspite and its fleet fought desperately, managing to destroy the factory world's core reactors, setting off a chain reaction. The entire planet erupted in a firestorm of destruction. But the cost was devastating. Only 2 of the 6 dreadnoughts survived. The Warspite itself barely escaped. And before they left, they intercepted a final transmission from the dying Ravager forces. A single word, broadcast in humanity's own language. Unworthy. #### The Ravager counterattack. The loss of the factory world was a blow to the Ravagers, but it also made them furious. 6 months later, they struck back. And this time, they didn't come with a scouting force. They came with a fleet. Thousands of ships, more massive than anything humanity had seen before, emerged from FTL near Alpha Centauri. Their target? Eden Prime, humanity's largest and most advanced colony. The Second Fleet, led by the Titan-class UNS Goliath, moved to intercept. But the battle was unlike anything before. The Ravagers had adapted to human tactics. They countered railgun fire with advanced energy dispersion shields. They jammed communications, isolating ships. And for the first time, they unleashed a new horror, boarding swarms. Millions of Ravager drones, fused with biological remains of past victims, tore through human warships from the inside, turning decks into slaughterhouses. Even the enhanced Sentinels struggled against the overwhelming tide. For every Ravager ship destroyed, a dozen more took its place. The battle lasted for 17 grueling hours, and by the end, the Second Fleet was in ruins. Eden Prime was lost. Billions of humans, gone. The colony, reduced to burning wreckage. It was humanity's first true defeat. #the darkest hour. The loss of Eden Prime sent shockwaves through Earth and the colonies. Morale shattered. For the first time, people questioned if humanity could win this war. The UEG declared a state of total war. Every man, woman, and child would contribute to the fight. Factories ran non-stop. The Genesis program was accelerated. The Sentinel initiative was expanded, volunteers flooded in, willing to undergo cybernetic enhancement if it meant humanity had a fighting chance. But the worst part wasn't just the loss. It was what the Ravagers had done after. They didn't just destroy Eden Prime. They took something. Sensors detected massive transport vessels leaving the burning colony, heading back into deep space. What was inside them, no one knew. But one thing was clear. The War of Extinction had begun. The loss of Eden Prime was more than a tragedy, it was a message. The Ravagers weren't just destroying worlds, they were harvesting them. For what purpose, humanity didn't yet know. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a war for survival anymore. It was a war for the soul of the species. And humanity had a choice: accept extinction or become something greater. #rising from the ashes. The aftermath of Eden Prime sent shockwaves through the United Earth government. Billions had died, and the might of the Second Fleet had been shattered. But even as despair gripped the colonies, something unexpected happened. People did not surrender. Across every colony, from Mars to Titan to Europa, millions enlisted. Entire planetary economies were converted into war machines. Civilians volunteered to be turned into sentinels, choosing enhancement, cybernetic augmentation, anything that could give them an edge against the enemy. The Genesis program was no longer voluntary. It was mandatory. Humanity would not just survive. It would evolve. The Omega Initiative, a new breed of warrior. The war had exposed one brutal truth: standard human soldiers, no matter how well trained, were not enough. The Ravagers were superior in every way: faster, stronger, biologically and technologically more advanced. The Omega Initiative changed that. Earth's brightest minds worked in secret, perfecting the next evolution of warriors, Omega-class Sentinels, These soldiers weren't just enhanced, they were rebuilt. Neural interfaces fused with AI, allowing for instant tactical calculations. Synthetic muscle fiber implants granted superhuman speed and strength. Quantum reflex boosters allowed them to react before an enemy even fired. They were no longer just human. They were something more. And their first mission would be a test of whether humanity had any hope of winning this war. Operation Revenant, striking back. The loss of Eden Prime had given humanity one advantage: it had exposed the Ravager's supply chain. The stolen human transport ships had been tracked to a Ravager foundry world, a place where the enemy harvested biological material and fused it with their war machines. It was where they were making more of themselves. If humanity could destroy it, they could deal a critical blow to the enemy's war machine. Operation Revenant was launched. For the first time, the Omega Sentinels would be deployed in battle. The infiltration of the Foundry world. A fleet of stealth corvettes carried the Sentinels deep into Ravager space. Their target, the core spire, a massive processing center that served as the heart of the Ravager biofusion system. The landing was brutal. The Foundry world was a graveyard of species, cities of skeletal remains, entire ecosystems stripped bare, all consumed and repurposed into a nightmare of flesh and metal. Human corpses had already been integrated into Ravager warforms. The Sentinels landed in the middle of hell. But they were ready. The battle for the core spire. The moment humanity's forces were detected, the world erupted into chaos. The Ravagers reacted like a hive, their machines surging forward in an unstoppable wave. But the Sentinels were faster. With their enhanced reflexes, AI-assisted aim, and cybernetic combat systems, they tore through the enemy's frontline. Where normal humans would have been overwhelmed, the Omegas pushed forward. But then, something unexpected happened. The Ravagers spoke. For the first time in the entire war, a transmission came through on all channels. You are changing. You are worthy. The Sentinels pressed on, reaching the core spire. With a plasma detonation charge, they collapsed the central fusion reactors, sending unstoppable explosions ripping through the entire planet. As the Sentinels evacuated, the Foundry world burned. For the first time, humanity had struck at the heart of the enemy. The turning point. The mission was a success. The Foundry world was gone. And with it, the enemy's ability to replace their lost forces had been severely crippled. But the real victory was something more terrifying. The Ravagers had acknowledged humanity. Not as prey. Not as something to be consumed. But as something that could become like them. And that changed everything. The final war approaches. Back on Earth, the UEG prepared for the final stage. The Ravagers would come again, this time, with everything they had. But humanity was ready. The Omega Sentinels were just the beginning. They would not break. They would not fall. They would not kneel. The war for the future of the galaxy was about to reach its climax. And for the first time, it was humanity who would decide its fate. The destruction of the Ravager Foundry world sent ripples across the stars. For the first time in history, an enemy had struck at the heart of the Ravager war machine, and lived. But humanity's victory came at a cost. The enemy had finally acknowledged them as a true threat. The final battle was coming. The last warning. A week after Operation Revenant, every human communication network was hijacked. Every screen, every broadcast, every piece of technology connected to a signal, all of them went dark, And then, a voice spoke. It was not human. It was ancient, cold, and utterly inhuman. You have evolved. You are worthy. And so, we will give you a choice. The stars shifted. Hundreds of wormholes ignited across the galaxy. Through them came the full force of the Ravager Armada. A fleet so large it blotted out the stars. You may join us. Submit, and ascend beyond flesh. Or resist, and burn with your world. Humanity had its answer. The final war had begun. The siege of Earth. The Ravager fleet did not strike in scattered waves like before. They came for Earth. Tens of thousands of warships, world devourers, and cybernetic horrors descended upon the Sol system. Every colony, every station, every defensive platform was under siege. Mars shipyards detonated in nuclear fire. Europa's ice seas boiled as enemy forces landed. Titan was left a shattered ruin. But Earth held. The United Earth Grand Armada, the last and greatest fleet humanity had ever assembled, took its stand in orbit. 3,000 warships. Hundreds of Titan-class dreadnoughts. thousands of Omega Sentinels. Millions of soldiers and planetary defenses. This was humanity's last stand. ##### the battle for the future. The first wave hit like a hurricane. The Ravagers crashed into Earth's defenses with the force of an extinction event. Their warships swarmed like an unstoppable tide, breaking through human formations with overwhelming force. The Titan-class dreadnoughts held the line, their railguns and energy cannons carving through enemy ranks, but for every Ravager ship destroyed, a dozen more took its place. Then, the ground assault began. Millions of Ravager warforms descended onto Earth's surface. Cities became war zones. Entire continents burned. Omega Sentinels fought street to street, their cybernetic reflexes barely keeping up with the monstrous tide. Humanity was outnumbered. But it was not outmatched. #### the unthinkable choice. As the battle raged, deep space sensors detected something horrifying. The Ravagers had deployed a world breaker. A planet killer, a machine the size of a moon, capable of reducing Earth to ash. The UEG had one option left. A prototype weapon hidden beneath the ruins of Eden Prime. A weapon of last resort. Project Ragnarok. A hyperspace singularity drive, a device capable of generating an artificial black hole. If activated, it would consume everything within its radius, including Earth. It was a suicide play. But if they did nothing, humanity would die anyway. The UEG gave the order. #### the final push. The surviving Omega Sentinels launched a final assault on the world breaker, fighting their way to its core. They detonated fusion warheads inside its primary reactor. They hijacked its command AI and turned its defenses against itself. They sacrificed everything to buy time. And then, Earth's remaining fleet activated Project Ragnarok. A black hole erupted in the heart of the battlefield. The Ravager Armada was caught in its grasp, their warships, their world breaker, their entire fleet, ****, all were dragged into oblivion, ****. But Earth was on the edge. The planet itself began to be pulled apart. Then, something happened no one expected. #### the Ravagers' final words. As their fleet crumbled, the Ravagers sent a final transmission. A single message, across all frequencies. You were the last. You were worthy. The cycle is broken. And then, they were gone. #### victory. At a cost ****. The singularity collapsed before it could consume Earth completely. The Ravagers had been annihilated, their fleet, their machines, their empire, gone, ****. But the cost was beyond imagining. Earth was scarred and burning. Billions were dead. The colonies were in ruins. Humanity had won. But they were the last civilization left. #### a new dawn. In the aftermath, the survivors gathered in the ruins of Earth. The war had changed them. They were no longer just humans. They were something greater. Cybernetic. Resilient. Evolved. The last species in the galaxy. And as they looked to the stars, they made a vow. Never again. They would rebuild. They would expand. And they would ensure that no other species would ever suffer as they had. For they were not just survivors. They were now the lords of the galaxy. Humanity had won. And the stars belonged to them.